Good evening. It's time for us to begin our class tonight. Certainly grateful for all who are here. And we'll be studying from the book of Proverbs. So if you want to get your Bible and turn to Proverbs, we'll be looking at several verses in Proverbs tonight. And we are on lesson 8, or on page 8 in our book. And we're going to be speaking tonight about pride and the human heart. And lots and lots and lots is said about having pride, and most of it negative. We'll see in the book of Proverbs, but we'll study that and look at that tonight, and hopefully we'll all gain something from that. But before we begin, Jason, will you lead us in prayer, please?
Lord, you are so amazing, so grateful that you have allowed us to gather together to study your word, to think about the book of Proverbs a little bit more. God, help us to look at the wisdom that's recorded for us that we don't pay attention to enough. God, help us to think through, especially tonight, the foolish attribute of pride. God, help us to let go of that in our lives. Help us to look through this wisdom, to find out what kind of issues come along when we are too prideful. God, more importantly, how to overcome it. Help us to fill ourselves with humility, that we can think about you more than we think about ourselves. God, may we always look for ways we can be more like you every single day. With all those who are teaching right now, all those in all the classes, help us all to stay focused on you, on your word, and what you want us to learn. In Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Anybody need material? Everybody got material that needs it? Very good. So we've got on page 8, as we begin to talk about pride, the verse that a lot of us are familiar with. Let's go ahead and just start on that. It's one of the favorites. Proverbs 16, verses 18 and 19. Proverbs 16, verses 18 and 19. Where the writer there says, it could be Solomon, we think that it is, pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better to be of humble spirit with the lowly than divide the spoil with the proud. So we get several attributes of pride here, and a comparison with it, and being humble. So I think that's the first thing we learn is the opposite of pride is humility. And most times, as we'll see in Proverbs, when you talk about the pride, it's viewed as a negative thing. And there's not a whole lot of positivity around pride. Humility, on the other hand, I think it's always a positive thing. I don't think you can ever see where humility is not painted in a positive way. So as Christians and as those that worship God and worship here at Southside, we don't want to be those prideful people. We want to be people that are humble, that have humility. Pride, as it says in that verse, goes before destruction. If you're a proud person, then it's not going to go well with you. And it uses a haughty spirit. Somebody help me with that. What in the world what is a haughty spirit? The definition of
being, just an ego problem or cocky or arrogant.
Okay, haughty, an ego problem, someone who is cocky, somebody who is arrogant. We think of those as being haughty, and one of the definitions I saw was, when you're haughty, you think you're above everybody else. So again, an ego problem. We think of people who got their nose stuck up in the air, looking down on others as a haughty kind of person, and that's not the kind of person we want to be around. We want to be around people that are humble and don't have this self raising their self above others. And we'll see that throughout this proverb, this chapter here on pride. Thoughts, comments on pride, humility before we get started here? This introduction, it's very long, but it's very good. It's by C.S. Lewis, and he wrote a book called Mere Christianity. Anybody ever read that? It's pretty popular book. Have you read it? Okay, some have read part of it. Michael said he had read it. So if you get a chance, you might look at that. But he has a lot of common sense things to say about things that are mentioned in Proverbs. But he wrote this introduction here, and I'll just read it, and y'all can follow along. There is one vice of which no man in the world is free, which everyone in the world loathes when he sees it in someone else, and of which hardly any person, except Christians, ever imagine that they are guilty themselves. So that's one of the biggest problems with pride, is I can see it in you, but I can't see it in me. And but it says he says there, except for Christians, and I don't know if that's exactly right, but that's the difficulty with pride, is it's something that we all can see in others and say, I don't want to be like that. But yet, as soon as we say that, we're showing our pride ourselves. So I think C.S. Lewis has got some good things to say here. Going on, he says, I've heard people admit that they're bad-tempered, or even they cannot keep their head about girls or drink, or even that they're cowards. I do not think I've ever heard anyone who is not a Christian accuse himself of this vice or accuse himself of being proud. And at the same time, I've very seldom met anyone who was not a Christian who showed the slightest mercy to it in others. There is no fault which makes a man more unpopular than pride, and no fault which we are more unconscious of in ourselves. So there's that problem again. We don't recognize pride in ourselves. We recognize it in others, but we just don't see it in ourselves. And that's where the problem develops. And the more we have it in ourselves, the more we dislike it in others. So it builds on itself. The vice I'm talking about is pride or self-conceit. And the virtue opposite it in Christian morals is called humility. It is through pride that the devil became the devil. Pride leads to every other vice. It is the complete anti-God state of mind. So you put it very well there. If you're a proud person, then it's all about you, and you're not thinking about others, and you're certainly not thinking about God. So I thought that was a good introduction to pride, and I thought Mr. Lewis there did a good job with that. It says it leads to every other vice. Somebody help me with that. How does pride lead to all other sins in some way?
Better seeing some satisfaction or some personal, something that makes me happy. And pride is about the elevation of me. That's abbreviated. He makes a really good argument in that passage. Goes on to say that that's what all sin is, just the elevation of me above anybody else or above God, and that's what pride is.
Okay, if you didn't hear that, Michael said pride is the elevation of me, and me above everybody else. And it's certainly looking to God for what He gives us, but an elevation of our skills and our abilities, and to the lowering perhaps of others. And we'll talk a little more about pride, but it's a prideful person always wants to be the best, always wants to have the best, and he may have plenty. You may know people that have got a lot, but they always want more, and they always want more than the next guy. And so that pride just builds on itself, and no matter what level you're at, socioeconomic level, you could be down here, you could be here, but you always want to be, these proudful people always want to be better than the person that they're next to. They want to look down on other people, to be haughty, and certainly a problem that pride brings to us as Christians. We cannot be this way. So, any other thoughts before we look at companions of pride? So,
Sometimes some of these topics, we talked about foolishness
okay.
last time. The world sometimes view those things as very positive, because a lot of the things that we would think that the world would view, people who get in an argument or something, The one that wins, in their opinion, is the one who can come back with something delicious or, put the other person down. And just like, yeah, you put them in their place. And so, like, they kind of elevate the fool. And I think in a lot of ways, our culture elevates a prideful attitude where it's all about me. If I can be a self-starting person, if I can do things myself, it doesn't matter who I step on along the way. And a lot of people kind of elevate that and aspire to have some of those qualities and characteristics. So even though a lot of people would say prideful people, I can't stand them, can't be around them, a lot of ways our culture even looks up to some of those people.
Yeah, good point. Good point. His point was a lot of way our culture today looks up to people who we know that have qualities of being proud. That they're they do anything to get to the top. They're climbing the ladder, and they don't matter who they step on. That's something that we hear talked about, and a lot of people think that's the way to do things. But to Jason's point, that's certainly not what we see here in what Solomon teaches us in Proverbs. Okay, number one, companions of pride. And the first one it brought up was haughtiness, and we've already talked a little bit about that. But haughtiness is just having a high opinion of yourself. You look down on others, and you elevate yourself above others. A couple of verses here, we'll look them up. Proverbs 21 and verse 4. Proverbs 21 and verse 4. Somebody want to read that one? Proverbs 21 and verse 4.
I look at a proud heart, plowing at the wicked is sin.
Okay? Says, talks about those things, and he lists them as sin. So a haughty look, looking down on others, a proud heart, and the plowing of the wicked are sin. Somebody got another version that gives me what the plowing of the wicked might mean? Evil actions.
That one's all over the place. NET is what the wicked cultivate.
Okay, haughty eyes, proud heart, and what the wicked cultivate is sin. This NLT said evil actions. Haughty eyes, a proud heart, and evil actions are all sin. So again, talking about this haughtiness, having a high opinion of yourself. The writer here said haughtiness is being disdainfully or contemptuously proud. So haughtiness and pride go hand in hand. Why does pride show such contempt for others? Somebody who's haughty, somebody who's proud, why do they always have contempt for others? Anybody got an answer for that?
Most of the time, others are just in the way.
Okay.
What they want. The ladder of success, whatever it may be.
Okay. The others are just in the way. They're just a stepping stone. You may step upon them. If we're that proud person, we want what others have, and we'll do whatever we can to do better than them. And we can't be happy with just having enough. Proud people cannot be happy with just enough. They got to have more. They got to have better. They got to have, have more than somebody else around them. So certainly, haughtiness is a companion of pride. We do not want to be a haughty person. The next one it talks about, be there, is a scoffer. We don't use that word much today. What is a scoffer?
Almost kind of, I think it's like chuckling, at you for being, inferior to them, dominating you at this, whether it's academically or physically or rubbing it in. They're just scoffing and kind of making fun at the same time, elevating the way they think about themselves. Okay,
so just making fun of others. We use the word mocking, elevating themselves and looking down at others. The verse that's brought up here is Proverbs 21:24. Proverbs 21:24. Somebody want to read that one? Okay. Her version called it a scorner. The New King James says a proud and haughty man. Scoffer is his name. He acts with arrogant pride. So there's the word arrogant. We haven't talked about it much. Somebody who's arrogant. We don't like those kind of people. We try to stay away from those kind of people. But it calls that person a scoffer. He's proud and haughty, and he is a scoffer or a mocker. He makes fun of someone and often of their religion or their morals. So, there's probably people that would scoff at us tonight for being at a worship service on a Wednesday night. There's lots of other things that we could be doing, might be doing, and some people might scoff or mock us for doing that. But God instructs us on that we should be here and we should be worshiping together. But a scoffer is somebody who makes fun of others and elevates himself, lowers those. Pretty much the same as the haughtiness, very similar. Thoughts, comments on scoffing? And then C is boasting. Another companion of pride is somebody who boasts. And what's the definition for boasting? Bragging. Somebody brags. Wendell, you like to be around people that brag? Not necessarily. We don't like to be around people that brag. There's some boasting, and then we'll talk about this later. But there's some boasting that's okay, but just to brag, to elevate yourself, to put somebody down is certainly not. It's a companion of pride. It says here, pride's greatest fear is that someone else will not notice the greatness it sees in itself. So a boaster, somebody that he's afraid somebody will not recognize how great they are. Therefore, they just have to boast of themselves. How about somebody look up 25:14, Proverbs 25:14.
Whoever falsely boasts of giving is like clouds in the wind without rain.
Explain that to me, Tim. Whoever falsely boasts of giving is like clouds and wind without rain.
All them clouds the other night didn't have any rain.
Okay? We've had a lot of clouds lately. If they didn't have any rain, they wouldn't be worth much, are they? And that's what it talks about, this person who falsely boasts. This one talks about giving. Well, I did this, and I helped, and I was charitable, and I did that. Somebody boasting about themselves. And this proverb says that's like clouds without rain. There's not much good in that, and it doesn't come to much value. So we don't want to be the kind of person that boasts about something that we have done. Proverbs 27:2 also talks about the same thing. Kind of says, don't be the one that brags on yourself. Proverbs 27:2.
Let another praise you, and not your own mouth, a stranger and not your own lips.
Okay, so don't brag on yourself. Let somebody else do that. Don't elevate yourself. If somebody else sees something that you've done well, let them tell you that you've done something well, but don't broadcast it like we talked about on Wednesday night. Don't broadcast something that you've done that you think you've done well. Let somebody else do that. If you have to do it yourself, then you're certainly becoming a boaster, and that is not a quality that a Christian should have. So several things there are listed as companions of pride. Haughtiness, scoffing, boasting, all of those are very similar. As Christians, we need to stay away from all of those if we can. Thoughts, comments on any of those?
That's why Jesus teaches so strongly about not doing things to be seen by men.
Okay.
We see a lot from him. If what you're looking for is praise from men, then that's the only reward you're going to get.
Yeah.
And if we're only worried about, well, I did this great thing and nobody even saw it, so what good is it? I might as well just not do it and nobody can see it. But it's like, come on now. We want to do things for the Lord, and we need to be content knowing that He sees all and He rewards us.
Okay, good point. If we're doing things to get the praise and honor of men, then we're doing it for the wrong reason. We should only be doing those things that honor God, and if nobody knows it but God, then that's enough. That should be enough. If God knows it, then it doesn't matter who all men may know. But we're not here to please man. We're here to please God. So we do all we can to please him in all that we do. So thank you, Jason, for that. Okay, pride versus God. Part A says pride is the ultimate sin against God. Let's look at Proverbs 3, 5 through 7. Pride is the ultimate sin against God. Verses we're all familiar with, we've heard over and over again. Proverbs chapter 3, beginning in verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. So if we are trying to elevate ourselves and lean on our own understanding, then we're trying to be wise in our own eyes. And Proverbs over and over says that's not the way we should be. We should fear the Lord, do what he says, depart from evil. So pride is the very opposite of being a godly person. A prideful person and a godly person are certainly not the same. It goes on to say here, it is the assumption that man is self-sufficient and important enough to compete with God's greatness, magnitude, strength, and wisdom. So pride would tell you that. Pride would say, I don't need God. I can do this on my own. I don't need any help from God. That's certainly not true. We all need God. God is in control. We need his greatness and his strength and his wisdom to defeat pride in our lives. Part B, pride opposes the first principle of wisdom, Proverbs 8:13. Somebody got that one? Proverbs 8, verse 13.
Fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, and the evil way, and perverse mouth I hate.
Okay, so the fear of the Lord, if you want to fear God, you're going to hate evil, you're going to hate pride, you're going to hate arrogance, and the perverse mouth, and another version say the perverted mouth. God says he hates. So if we don't, and we will see that word several times in here. If God hates something, it's really, really bad. For God to hate it, we ought to hate it too. And God hates pride, arrogance, and a perverted mouth. And unfortunately, we all know people like that. And we may not like it at all, but it says here that God hates that. And that's a very strong word that God uses, that he certainly is against those things. Proverbs 22 and verse 4. Okay, so there's the opposite of pride is humility. It says by humility and the fear of the Lord are riches, honor, and life. So great positive things that could come our way if we're humble and we have fear of God. It may not be rich in material things, but we could be rich in spiritual things, and we could get honor. And other verses talk about that our the days of our life could be increased if we use wisdom and we're humble and we have fear of the Lord. Then chances are we might even live a little longer. That could be either a physical life or a spiritual life there, I think. But humility and fear of the Lord is how we get those things, not by pride. Humility and fear of the Lord. So part B there, pride opposes the principle of wisdom. So we have got to do our best to stay away from those things that lead us away from God. And then finally, the part C there, pride is an abomination to God. Proverbs 16:5, pride is an abomination to God. Okay? Anyone proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. What's abomination mean? What is an abomination? It would make you sick, perhaps. Anybody else got a word? Disgusting. I think somewhere it says detestable. Something that's abominable is detestable. And it says the Lord hates, he detests a proud heart. So again, things we certainly don't want to have. A detestable to the Lord. We don't want to do anything like that. Then Proverbs 29:23. I think 29:23. Okay. Pride brings humiliation. Is that what you said? Pride ends in humiliation. But the humility brings honor. My New King James says a man's pride will bring him low, but the humble in spirit will retain honor. So pride, again, will in the end, it brings about destruction. It'll bring you low, and not a characteristic that a Christian would want to have at all. Proverbs 6:16 through 19. Have we read that one? Proverbs 6:16 through 19. We'll read these, kind of get an idea of what Solomon's talking about. Lots of verses, then we'll look at the questions, and hopefully they'll help us with some of the answers. This is a good one. Proverbs 6:16 through 19 says, "These 6 things the Lord hates." So there's the Lord hating something again. "Yes, 7 are an abomination to him," or they're detestable to him. And the first one listed there is a proud look. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among the brethren. So there's 7 things there that it says the Lord finds detestable. And the first one is a proud look. I've got a reference there to haughty eyes. So somebody's got a proud look. Somebody explain to me what a proud look is.
I think it's the idea of haughtiness. My ego is so big and I'm so much better than anybody else. There's no limit on what I can or cannot do.
Okay.
The consequences of those around me don't matter.
Okay.
That's what you see there. I mean, people are dying in this thing.
Okay. They got their ego's so big that they've just got this look about them, and they could care less about others, only think about themselves, and God hates that. I mean, he lays it out there pretty simple. He said, I hate that. I hate that proud look. And so, I mean, the issue is, how do we recognize that in ourselves? Again, we see it in others, but how do we recognize that in ourselves? And hopefully we'll discuss a little bit of that as we get into the questions, but you can be thinking about that already. We don't want to exalt ourselves above others. And then the consequences of pride, and it lists them there. A is shame, B is contention, and C is finally destruction. So we'll look at the first one there. This pride, consequences of pride is it brings shame. Proverbs 25:27. You think you've read these Proverbs 100 times, and then when you go to look at them, you say, I don't remember that. Proverbs 25:27. Okay, so I didn't remember this one. It's not good to eat too much honey. Well, why is it not good to eat too much honey? Okay, if you eat too much honey, you get a bellyache. It's like that 5th milkshake. First 2 are okay, but the 3rd, 4th, and 5th one are not that great. It's not good to eat too much honey. So to seek one's own glory, my version says, is not glory. So you may think that you're doing something that's good, trying to seek your own glory, but it's like that too much honey. It's not good for you. It's going to make you sick, and worse, it's going to make everybody around you sick. So I thought that was an interesting proverb that I'd forgot about. So it brings you shame. Nobody wants to be around you. That's what pride can do for you. And then it also brings you, part B, it brings you contention or strife. Proverbs 13:10. Proverbs 13:10 says, by pride comes nothing but strife, but with the well advised is wisdom. So you have this pride, you're always going to be, you're going to have strife in your life. And why is that? Why are you going to be contentious if you have pride? Want to protect it? For sure.
Not conducive to having good, strong relationships with others when you're proud.
Okay, when you're proud, it's difficult to have strong relationships with others because you're always wanting to be better than others. You don't want to be on an equal with anybody. You want to be better than everybody. So you're always going to have contentions, and you're going to be stirring up strife, and that certainly is going to lead to a difficult life.
Chapter 14, verse 3, have that connected to that same passage.
Okay, go ahead.
In the mouth of the foolish is a rod of pride. That's the first part of the verse anyway. So I think that kind of ties in anything the fool says. It's prideful. It's going to be like forgetting you or something.
Yeah.
The words hurt.
Okay. So then the mouth of a fool is a rod of pride. It's going to be hurtful. He's not going to say anything that's going to build you up. He's always wanting to elevate himself and not build you up. And then finally, it talks about pride leading to destruction. Proverbs 18:12. Proverbs 18:12. These are very, very, they're very similar, but they've got a few different words in it. But Proverbs 18, verse 12 says, before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor is humility. So if you want destruction, it says what's going to lead you that way is being haughty or being proud. But if you want honor, then be humble. Be a humble person, and you will be honored. So pride leads to destruction, and we've read many verses that 16, Proverbs 16, 18, 19 certainly tell us that. And so we certainly are going to have ourselves a problem if we're a proud person. Okay, so let's look at the discussion questions, and hopefully we'll come up with some things that will help us. Number one, it says, are you, so me and you, are we looking to identify pride in ourselves or in others? Most of the time, what are we doing? Yeah, we're most of the time looking at others. We're not looking within ourselves and seeing, are we being as humble as we should be? Are we trying to lower ourselves and not raise ourselves up above others? We don't want to be judging others. But we want to be as humble as we possibly can be. Number two is, why is it so difficult to see pride in ourselves, but it's easy to detect in others? So that's the answer to this whole class. How can we identify pride in ourselves?
I think one way, perhaps, or a test of that is how do we respond to criticism?
Okay.
Pride doesn't take criticism very well.
Okay.
So that's not the answer, but it might be a light on the dashboard.
Okay. Michael said one of the ways to identify criticism is to identify pride in ourselves is how we respond to criticism. If somebody brings you a criticism of some sort to you, how do you handle that? Do you fly off mad and say, it's not me, you've got the wrong guy, you're thinking of somebody else? or do we accept it humbly and try to correct that criticism that they brought to us? So that's a good one. What else? What other ways can we detect?
It may be good to tally up sample size of however long, weeks or a month. How often have we been able to admit being wrong?
Okay,
Can you be wrong? And if you know, if so, how much have you admitted to the person that I was wrong?
okay,
So, you know, there's two parts to, I knew I was wrong, but I'm not gonna tell this person I was wrong. And so kind of two things there. Am I openly able to say, I'm able to accept whatever answer allows it to be right?
okay.
And not just, I can't be wrong. How often that happens?
So, yeah, can we admit to being wrong? I think that's a great one. Are any of us ever wrong? Yeah, we're wrong a lot, aren't we? If somebody points that out to us, can we admit it? And can we make the corrections necessary? So, Ron, I think that's another good one. Be able to admit wrong, be able to how we respond to criticism, anything, whatever. Anybody else got anything else?
Remembering who we are in relation to God. I read this book called Life Together. It's about this guy wrote it who was in a concentration camps in Germany for being Christian, but he was evangelizing while he was there. And he points out in this book, it's all about, you know, Christian relationship, the Christian family, our view of others. And he said, until I see myself as the chiefest of sinners, I will never be as humble toward other people as I need to be.
Okay.
So if we can remember that we're just as guilty of crucifying Christ as, you know, the Jews who committed the actual act, then when we look at others and see whatever we think they're doing is wrong is no worse than what I've done.
Okay.
And that helps to keep us kind of grounded and remember that, you know, really one person's no better than another. If anybody could have been perfect and right all the time, Jesus would have come.
Okay. Good. Very, very, very good. So our main point was there is, do we remember who we are in relation to Christ? That you know, we all sin. Christ was the only perfect person, and do we when we're looking at others and judging others, do we bear in mind that who we are in relation to Christ, that we're all sinners and we all didn't deserve what God has, through His grace, has given to us, and do we have that kind of attitude that we remember who we are in relation to God? Good, very good. Anything else on part two there?
Might be a mercy piece in there. I'm a prideful person. I'm not willing to point out my own flaws, and so I think I'd have a problem with giving myself all the mercy that I should be giving to other people
Okay,
for the flaws that they have.
okay,
Instead of excusing and making excuses and pushing off my own, it's just a personality thing, instead of fixing the problem, making excuses for it.
okay.
Giving myself that mercy, which I should not do if I want to be better.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, number 3, as we go through here. Why do God and pride not mix? What is it that causes the strife between the two?
Pride is kind of a form of idolatry where we worship ourselves.
Okay, idolatry, pride, where we worship ourselves. I like.
Can't serve two masters.
Can't serve two masters, and pride and God certainly do not mix. How did Satan's pride cause the enmity between himself and God? Uses 1 Timothy 3:6. Somebody got the answer for that one? 1 Timothy 3:6. Okay, somehow I didn't. I was going to say, I was off on that one.
Not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he shall fall into the condemnation of the devil.
Okay, talking about a qualification for an elder. It says not a novice, not a new convert, less being puffed up. Somebody with pride, there's that puffing up, building themselves up. If he's that way, then he's going to fall in the same condemnation as the devil did. So, again, the puffing up that comes with pride, it says that the devil had that puffing up. And so there's the strife between God and the devil.
Yeah, I don't want to get into where did Satan come from. It's pretty, maybe a field from where we're going. But ultimately, it had something to do with, I'm not going to take orders from this guy anymore.
Okay.
And that, why's he got the right to tell me what to do? That's the core of the deal.
Okay, so he's talking about Satan and his pride, and he wasn't, we're not going to get into the origin of how all that happened, but we know from Scripture that he rebelled against God. He wasn't going to take orders from God, and because of that, he was thrown out of heaven, and a pride problem. And I think that's what this verse is leading to. Satan had a pride problem. Anybody that follows Satan's got a pride problem. Just the opposite of that is God. So I think that's a good point, Michael. Thank you. Let's see. I want to hit on this. Is pride ever talked about in a positive sense in the Bible? We've seen all these verses that it's very, very negative. Is pride ever talked about as positive in the Bible? Tim, you already told me. Okay, tell me one more time. 2 Corinthians 12, 9 and 10. 2 Thessalonians 1, 4. I've got 2 Corinthians 7, 4. And yeah, so let's look at these. So Tim, 2 Corinthians 12, 9 and 10. Read that to me. 2 Corinthians 12, 9 and 10.
He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest on me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in needs, in persecution, in distresses for Christ's sake. When I am weak, then I am strong.
Okay, and I'm looking at verse 11. And I become a fool in boasting. I have become a fool in boasting, is what my version said. So here we've got Paul that it talks about his boasting a couple of times there. He boasted I have pleasure in infirmities and reproaches. Therefore, most gladly I would rather boast in my infirmities in verse 9. So doesn't use the word proud, but it talks about him boasting, and that is a positive way of looking at pride, I think. Also, 2 Corinthians 7 and 4. Did I get the right verse there? Oh, yeah. 2 Corinthians 7, 4. Paul again speaking. Great is my boldness of speech toward you. Great is my boasting on your behalf. I am filled with comfort. I am exceedingly joyful in all tribulation. Paul there boasting. So is that a positive? Is that a positive pride? Think so. Yeah, I think so. Do we? So can we have pride in our grandchildren? Can we say I'm proud of my grandchildren? Y'all remember Sean Bain spoke on this? He never used the word proud. He never wanted to use the word proud. So I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying I think we can say in a positive way that we're proud of our grandchildren, or we're proud of somebody's accomplishment. If it's used to build somebody else up and not ourselves, we're looking to raise somebody else up, maybe even lower ourselves. I think we can use that word, but we got to be careful with it. I think Sean used the word happy. I'm happy with I'm well pleased. Pleased, yeah. So, again, 95% of the time you see the word pride in the Bible, it's a negative. But I think there are times that we can use it carefully and not make it a sin when we're proud of something that somebody else has done. So, another verse, another thing that's said, it has to do with number 13. I think it was a great saying. I wrote down who it was. It may have been C.L. Lewis. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. So I think that's a great one. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. So we'll end with that. And Sunday morning we'll pick up on, we're going to go right from pride to anger. Page 10 on anger. Thank you.